Who reads newspapers? Who watches television news? Who reads news magazines? And does this have any impact? And I would ask you actually to address that. Does the readership levels and the students' involvement with the media, does that impact them in any way in the Ivy League campuses?
Yes, Frank, but before I get to that, let's take a look first at the actual numbers of who reads and who watches and who is actually taking in the information. Maybe this sheds a little light on why the current affairs section was so, pathetic. A third of students in the Ivy League don't bother to read a daily paper. A half watch absolutely no television news, and a half don't bother to read news magazines like Time or Newsweek. Perhaps on a slightly more encouraging note, 11% more seniors read a newspaper than freshman students, and over 1.5 more hours of TV news is watched by seniors than freshmen. So perhaps as they go through school, students do increase their intake of media information. Now, addressing your question, why is it important that students take the time to read a paper or to watch the news? Excuse me. First of all, these students are going to be more aware, and secondly, these students are going to be more involved in our political process. We asked students if they would run for office in the future, how they felt about that. Fully 82% of the students who said that they would run for office also read a paper, and 2/3 of them watch TV news, far above the regular averages. Excuse me. We also asked students where they felt the media lay. Is the media biased, unbiased? Where does this bias lay, if there is one? In a condemnation of our media, only 3% of students said that the media was impartial. Fully 52% said it was at least slightly biased, and the remainder said it was either very biased or extremely biased. Excuse me. Students are inclined to find the media to be liberal, with 3 times as many students saying so than those who said it was conservative. Not surprisingly, 78% of Republicans said the media was liberal. Surprisingly, more than half of Democrats would agree. Open up to questions, I guess.
Up in front also. Go ahead.
Yeah. For the exposure to media, and Robert Jacopetti, Penn, you polled for the exposure to media and news programs. I'm assuming did you also poll to see how much exposure they have just to TV and other magazines?
Yeah, well, what we did is we went ahead and asked a series of questions. First, we asked them how much TV they watch in general, and then we went ahead and asked them how much TV news, and then we gave them a list of magazines to read. We went from magazines from Time to Time and Newsweek to Rolling Stone and Sports Illustrated. We also polled as far as did they watch debates, a whole series of questions designed to see whether or not students are informing themselves. And what we found is there's a significant block in the Ivy League, probably between 30 and 40% of students who are taking in between 0 and no political information.
Total exposure, I mean, what percentage is of the total exposure?
You're asking me for a specific number?
I mean, just general,
Is getting exposure, is that what you're asking?
I mean, do students watch that much television?
In general, no. Not really.
That's
not
really.
Really.
So,
no.
Okay.
I can't give you a specific number right now, but if you want to talk to me after this thing is over, I'd be glad to give you one.
Right here.
I was just going to ask, my name is Jason Trensky, whether when you were discussing the television news that they're receiving, what influence cable television had on that? Like if you divided up between the networks and cable to see what influence cable's having?
Well, as far as TV news goes, what we did is we asked them if they watched national news, network news, ABC, CBS, NBC, and we found that those are the networks that students watch the most. And then we asked if they watched from CNN, Headline News came in next, and then on down. We asked about C-SPAN, we asked about morning news shows, and even the interview things, Larry King Live.
Since we got a C-SPAN here, how did C-SPAN do?
C-SPAN didn't fare so well, so let's change the subject. So that's how we went ahead and did that.
And one more question for Benji.
Hi, my name is Victoria Schnorr. I was just wondering, are there any majors that were significantly better informed than other majors?
Yeah, by far. As I just said, political science and history majors watch much more TV news, and magazines and stuff like that than do other majors. Again, fine arts and psychology majors watch the least and take in the least information. Just to close up, it's interesting. The next more interesting question is, what does this all matter? In addition to, are they more involved in the political process? Does this have any impact on how aware they are and how involved their minds are in the political arena? And what we found is that half of the students who got less than 4 questions correct on the thing watch no TV news and don't read a paper, while an overwhelming 79% of those who got 11 correct read a paper and 2/3 watch TV news. It is the students that take in the most information that are going to be the most active participants and are going to be the ones that are most aware as we move into the next generations. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Let me just ask you one question.
Sure.
You asked an MTV CNN question. What were the results?
Okay. We asked students sort of if you were stranded on a desert island kind of question. If you could pick from one station, if you were restricted to one station, would you have MTV or CNN? And 30% of students said that they would take MTV and 70% CNN. And I'll leave it up to you to see if 1/3 of students picking the VJ is disturbing or not.
Okay. Jeff Lichtman, your focus was on